Hi students, today we are going to be making a feather from paper inspired by the book How to Make a Bird, which is read to you by Mr. Stanesia. I'm going to go through the materials that you'll need, we'll explore what an actual feather looks like, and I'll go through each of the steps so I can guide you along. What an actual feather looks like. Take a look at these. So these are some feathers I had at home, and you'll notice that each of them have something in common. They've got this long stem. That's not what it's called, but that's what I'm going to be calling it. We've got the shape of the feather, which goes small, bigger, smaller. And we've got these downy barbs down here that go in the opposite direction. They're not all going in the same direction, the ones at the bottom going the opposite. That's really important to know for when we create our feathers today. Your feather might be balanced like this feather is, or it might be uneven where one side is shorter compared to the other side. Let's get to it. Today you'll need some of these materials. You will need some coloured paper. It can just be scrap paper. If you don't have that, just some spare paper that you found at home, some blank paper. You can even colour that in if you like, or draw patterns on it. Or you can pull out some pages from magazines. If I was to choose pages from magazines, I would choose ones with some beautiful colours in them. You are also going to need some skewers. Those skewers may be cut in half depending on the size of your feather. Either a matchstick or a toothpick. If you don't have any of those at home, you can also just head out to the local park with your parents, of course, or head out to your own garden and get some dry twigs off of the ground. I advise you not to get actual twigs from a tree that are fresh because they have moisture in them and over time they'll probably rot or mold. So make sure that what you collect is dry and thin. You want a stick that's strong but as thin as possible. You will also need some tools. You're going to need a pencil. You're going to need a set of scissors, and you're going to need some glue. Step number one is to pair up your paper so that they're matched as close as you can. It doesn't matter if it slightly moves. From here, we're going to just section off some of that paper. We are going to not focus on the shape of our feather, but just know that we're cutting, say, a rectangle shape that our feather will go onto. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do this with one hand. So I've drawn a rectangle shape just here, and I'm making sure that it could potentially fit my skewer because it has to go all the way through the feather or my stick. You can see that I've cut out those two pieces of paper. I held the paper together like so, and I've used my scissors to cut those so that they're pretty much the exact same size. If you need to ask for parent help, you're welcome to. It doesn't matter if they're not exactly the same size because we're going to cut them to shape later. But ideally, we want two pieces of paper that we can glue together, and I'm going to show you what that step looks like. Okay, the next step is to place our skewer or our stick close to the center of one piece of our paper. We are going to apply glue all around this surface here before we take our second piece of paper and glue them together and then press down in all areas. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay, you can see that I've applied a whole heap of glue to one piece of my paper. I'm going to place my skewer or my stick with a little bit down here for the nib or the end of the stem, so that way I can press my paper on top just like so. And we can gently press it around. If it doesn't perfectly align, that's okay. And we're going to use our fingers to just create the stem of our feather all the way up, making sure the paper is being pressed down nice and firmly. That is the end of step 2 for making a feather. Okay, I've left my paper and stick to dry for just a moment, and I've gone and drawn on some marks to represent the shape of my feather. And you can see, like I said before, I've gone thin, thick, thin around the stem of the paper. I've drawn that in, and I will next cut around it. you're welcome to do the same.
Okay, our next step is, once we've cut out our feather, it's to cut the little, I think they're called barbs, into this feather. And before you might remember that I mentioned that the direction of the barbs at the bottom is different. So let me show you how to do that now. You take your scissors and you're going to cut lines in a direction that's closer to the way your stem is pointing. But as you come around, you want to start to change that. Now, can you see that I'm cutting over the same marks, and it's okay if bits of paper fall out. And I'm going to start to change the direction so that now it's going to the side. So I've started going at this direction, and then I'm going to start going to the side before I start going in an upward direction. So let me speed that up for you. Like so. And it's okay if parts fall out. It will just add to the effect that the feather has been weathered a little bit. I find that the closer the little cuts are together, the more frilly or the more real the feather looks. And here is my fully finished feather with all the barbs cut. I find that it's helpful to run your fingers through them just to make them a little bit uneven, or to smooth them in certain areas and to mess them up in other areas. And if you've finished that feather, put it somewhere safe. I would absolutely love to see what it looks like when we return to school. So hold on to it and bring it in. Good luck with making your feather, guys.